Well, Charles, it's the summer of Horace Mann.
That it is. And here we are in front of one main entrance portion of the school. The summer of 1968, I was in the Berkshire Boy Choir. I know one of our viewers thought that they had found the RCA record that we'd done, and it was actually, the title of it is Alleluia. And so I spent the summer up in 1968 up in near Stockbridge, Massachusetts at the Berkshire School.
Let me pause you for a second, because there's a lot of stuff we want to talk about relative to the summer. One thing that's happening is, we've landed here at Horace Mann, and there's a little bit of a poor network situation, so hopefully this video is going out all right. I want to give people a little background as to what we're doing here, and also the reason we selected this movie. It does seem to be going live there. It says, keep playing. It's working. Okay, so the reason we're here is because the other day on the show with Manny Grossman, we were talking about somebody from Horace Mann who was in the New York Times. But why don't we walk around the campus and we'll take a look, because you've told us before, this is where you went to high school, right?
Actually, when I went, it was all boys, and you went from 7th grade to 12th grade, and of course, to be a little snobby, they called it first form to sixth form, copying the English approach. But yeah, I spent from September of 68 until late May 74 with my life centered on this campus, one way or another. And
this is smack in the middle of when the Son of Sam thing was happening. We're not going to make today's episode about Son of Sam, but of course the movie is Summer of Sam. This is going to be Summer of Horace. And in the interest of Kaizen, there's a terrible demonstration of it because the network is so weak today. But there's a lot of new technology that I'm utilizing, Charles.
You want to go this way?
You want to go this way? Okay, sure. So let's go this way, and we'll walk around the campus and check it out. And hopefully we'll get to a spot with a stronger network signal, because this is going to be like a slideshow for people watching.
Well, so one of the things, here we are, we're technically inside New York City at this place. And when I remind you, when I went, it was 6 years of kids, of about 110 kids per class. We merged with a school called Barnard, which is across the street, and that drove up to 130 kids a class by the time I graduated. So we had this same amount of land. We didn't have the building to our right here in the same way, but we had the same amount of land. To our left is something called 4 acres, which when I was here, it was basically tennis courts at the top, but now because it's co-ed, there's, I think, a field hockey field up there and also tennis courts. So when you're an athletic boy, and your options are to go to schools inside the concrete jungle in Manhattan, contrast that with this, right in the center of school. When I was here, it was set up as a football field like this. Then the headmaster, Inslee Clark, was really into baseball. So he actually constructed a professional style, or had constructed a professional style diamond in the center here, where even though we wanted to play football here, others wanted to play football here. And where the gray building is right there, that used to be 4 clay tennis courts. The next building over is a gym. There are actually 2 gymnasiums and an indoor swimming pool in there and an indoor track. And then that thing with the clock tower is, I think, for the lower school, meaning 6th to 8th grade, or maybe 7th to 8th grade. Right dead ahead is Pforzheimer Hall, which is where I started as what we would call each other. We were called firsties and secondies. And one of the big traditions way back then was to have a snowball. When snow fell, you had a gigantic snowball fight between the firsties and the secondies. And think about, call it 100-odd kids on either side throwing snow at one another. And you got, of course, drenched to the bone.
But this wasn't a boarding school, right? You
would
ride the subway to get here.
I rode an hour each way. In the end, I started doing my homework on the subway, which is actually...
No shoes, uphill, in the snow.
Well, it was interesting. When I started, it was 68, right? So that's just when you had the flower revolutions and all that, the hippies and all that. And when I started, it was jackets and ties were required. And then they eliminated that dress requirement. The school did, but my mother said, you're wearing a jacket and tie. So me and my brothers had to wear a jacket and tie.
What would your mother say about no tie right now, Charles?
Oh, she would, I think, be understanding.
What about me? Cargo shorts. She would hate that.
Get rid of this guy. Anyway, and then now you get a nicer view of Tillinghast Hall. That's the original upper school hall.
Ah,
And one of the things, I don't know if it's still like this, but when I went, one of the things that distinguished Horace Mann from other schools is that if you wanted to excel at something, you had a chance to do that at this school. You had, right straight ahead is the theater. I was in some pretty major productions in 7th and 8th grade. You had a fantastic theater. You had an excellent science and math department. You had world-class humanities, many languages, and then our sports teams were really good. And surprisingly so, in that they taught, for example, in basketball, they taught teamwork. And I believe there was a year, I may have this wrong, where Horace Mann, which didn't really have, the big, tall dunking team, we beat one of the city public schools.
Wow.
In a game by using teamwork and passing the ball around. I remember we would have, they'd have put on music, and the different teams would come in, and the Horace Mann, maybe one guy in the basketball team or 3 guys in the basketball team of say 12 people could dunk. And this team I'm thinking of, they come out, and from the tallest guy obviously can dunk, and they do it in descending height, and some guy who's like 5'8" could dunk. And I was sitting in the stands saying, this is going to be like 165-2 or something, and we actually won.
so we're, as I said earlier, Charles, we're right on the edge of network performance here in terms of being able to actually broadcast a video. So I think people are seeing mostly a succession of still frames, but they've got your narration voiceover.
Sure.
What I may need to do when we return to Manhattan is to create a director's cut of this with the full motion video.
Okay.
That people will be able to see on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. And I can tell that that's happening because before, people saw, like, as we move,
Right.
when large portions of the image change, it's putting more demand on the video compression. And before you were talking, it was moving great, and then the car drove by and it stopped.
Okay. Well, so now we're getting close to the swimming facility, which was not here.
Yeah, this stuff looks quite new.
Yeah. And this would probably be a second pool. Oh, family, what's this? Lutnick Hall. That must be Howard Lutnick.
Well, that's what I was thinking. What
It says, and then does it say,
Tisch family?
no, something.
Something Ditch Family Campus Center. Ditch the family, come to the campus center.
Inditch? Minditch? Something Minditch, I think. But this is...
Mendenhall?
No, Minditch. So I would spend, while I was on campus, when you could play tennis in the fall and the spring, I would spend as much time as possible over here playing tennis. And my day involved getting through class and figuring out who I was going to play tennis with. In the winter, it was impossible to play tennis, so we'd mess around with basketball courts and watch basketball games or whatever. And it really was an environment where there weren't many kids who were fantastic athletes, great in science, great in
Hard to do all
great
that.
in humanities. This gives you an example of the tennis courts. These are very high quality, I can tell just looking at them.
Yeah.
Very high quality tennis courts. Back in the day, we did not have 4 next to each other the way these are, and they certainly weren't blue and green like this. We had, I think, 3 next to one another, then a single court. And we can't go in here, but beyond there's a little place where you could chip golf balls and basically amuse yourself. Now, the goal of Horace Mann is to get kids into the top colleges. It's to give them a good education, obviously, but to get them into the top colleges. So in my year, in 1974, I want to say that at least 80 kids out of 130 went to either an Ivy League school, MIT, Caltech, or something like that, or Williams or Swarthmore, some of the really difficult schools to get into. And the honors level classes, which I enjoyed being in, were incredibly competitive. I mean, it was like, not only would they would only give a few A's out, but I remember the statistic, I think I've told you, that in my math level 2 calculus class, we had, I think it was, let's say it was 19 kids. It might have been 17, but let's say it was 19. 11 kids.
It's really hot again today.
Yeah, 11 kids got a perfect score,
Wow.
and it was 1 hour
One of
test.
them was, of course, you.
Well, I'm going to get to that. You're a great straight man. It was a 1 hour test, and the question was, how quickly could you get a perfect score?
Huh.
And so I won that one, 26
Wow.
minutes.
Unbelievable.
You see,
Charles.
that's walled off, so you can't go. I don't want to walk up those steep steps, but
Is that the walled off Astoria?
that's the walled off 4 acres.
What is up there?
That's the field hockey field now and sporting fields and stuff. But very few New York City schools have this amount of land for a small number of kids with this amount of athletic facilities. And
Do your part. Stay 6 feet apart.
right.
I'll tell you, Charles, this is really interesting, I think, for people, including me, to see. Because, as you said, we're still in New York City, and anybody who watches our videos regularly, this is a major contrast to what people would expect to see from New York.
And we walk by Dalton, and you can see why. I mean, if you remember what Dalton's like, it's just
Right.
it's nothing.
It's one building.
Right, and
This is like a college campus.
right, and
I mean, actually, this is way more impressive than several colleges I've seen.
right, and really back in the day, we'll get to the good and the bad side. There were a lot of teachers. In fact, let's wait here for a second. There was a teacher called Nathaniel Glidden, if you know Glidden paint, and
Oh, yeah.
we had a class that I'll remember till I lose my memory, called General Language in 7th grade, where you had to take Latin, French, Spanish, German, even Esperanto, and he taught this class. And so the first day of the class, he puts up on the board, he puts up the word strigil, and he asks the class, "Can anyone tell me what a strigil is?" And I forget what happened. And he said, "Well, I think a strigil is a skin scraper that was used by the Greeks and the Romans after
Really?
yeah." And I think he was left-handed from memory, and he's got this Webster's dictionary with like a the thing that you would bind skis with, a strap around it. He picks it up without looking and like throws it as hard as he can at a kid
Wow.
to catch it. And he says, "Open it up, kid, open it up and look and see what it says." And he reads it out. And to the class he says, "Was I right?" And the top student in the class was the yes sir sayer. So you had to say quickly, "Yes sir." And then they would say, "Was I lucky?" And that was the no sir sayer. And it was like this theater that made really learning languages a lot of fun. He also was the tennis teacher.
But throwing books at students?
Oh.
Was this back in the day when abuse was considered fun?
No, it wasn't. You weren't going to get. If you weren't looking, you'd get hit pretty hard. But if you could catch it, and remember, we were little boys. We were 12 years old.
Right.
But and so anyway, to give you a sense of this man, he sold his family sold the Glidden Paint Company, and he became a headmaster at a school out in Colorado that used to shut down in the mud season, and he would pay
Mud season?
when the snow goes away and it's mud.
Oh.
He would pay for that school to go to Europe, take him on a tour of Europe and stuff like that. We had a series of really interesting teachers, but I know one of the reasons we're up here is a lot of negative publicity still out there, sadly, about Horace Mann. Believe it or not, when I was there, and it turns out, and it stands to reason, that a single-sex school is going to attract predators, whether it's a girls' school or a boys' school. Done well with controls, they're fantastic. But when I was there, sadly, it turns out there were a number of teachers who became justifiably the subjects of lawsuits and
Well, they were predators, weren't they?
yeah, they really were. And in that age, 12 to 18, kids are finding their sexuality. Who knows what percentage of a class is going to be straight or bisexual or gay, but that's a vulnerable period of your life,
Yeah.
and you would not want an authority figure to sort of lead you on or prey on you or whatever, whether it's a man on a man or a woman on a man or a woman on whatever. And it turns out that while I was there, one clue was the headmaster was he was single, and he was, I believe, a closeted gay man.
He was the given headmaster.
And so there were the school seemed to attract a fair number of people who apparently would get together and figure out, who are the vulnerable kids.
Wow.
There are a lot of divorces, typically when you're 12 to 18. And so, sadly, people can read up about it in the press, but just by Googling it, but there are multiple instances of kids, sadly, who were preyed upon by these teachers. Some killed themselves. Many struggled with depression and worse addiction issues and stuff. But
I'm showing right now, just briefly, this New York Times article that shows some of the students, legal weed here too, Charles. Some of the students and some of the faculty members who were named in this article.
Right.
But you knew some of these teachers, and you were
Sure.
aware that they were doing this
Well,
stuff.
I mentioned that Berkshire Boy Choir. So my mother went to Yale Music School. She got a bachelor's and a master's there. She was an expert on
What was that music teacher's name again?
Johannes Samari.
Right.
And she was at Yale with him. And the fact that I had gotten into this choir and the fact that I had, that we just cut a record on RCA gave me a certain amount of standing as a seventh grader in the school. So Samari was eager to get me involved with the chorus and all.
What
this
was
stuff.
he like interacting with him? Was
He was
ever
weird
towards you?
He was not really, because see, I was raised in Greenwich Village, and my mother instructed us to be wary of single men who might develop an interest in hanging around a kid who's much younger. So I didn't, I didn't rush into any opportunity to be alone with him. He invited me one time. Do you want to walk down to
Wherever
the very
you want to
bottom
go.
and back?
Yeah, wherever you want to go.
We'll see maybe the seating.
This is your tour here, Charles.
So this is the school level. We're up high now, and we'll show people. We'll go all the way down to the subway stop that I used to take every day, and maybe we should cross the street. So
Oh man.
what's wrong?
Well, this is saying there's less than 750. I just checked this. I thought this chip had all the data we needed. So we're going to definitely need to do a sponsor exclusive director's cut because we're going to run out of data, but we'll just keep going.
All right, let's cross the street, just because I don't want you to get hit. I mean,
with
I
you
also
on
don't
that.
want to get hit.
Yes.
But so the campus is to my left. That used to be right there when I was a kid. That was the admissions office right there. I don't know if it still is. And it's nestled into these residential apartment buildings and even a portion of Manhattan College. I think that's where, isn't that where the dreaded CIA director went to Manhattan College?
Which one?
Brennan.
Did he? I didn't know that.
I think he might have. It's either that or Fordham.
James Comey apparently was from Yonkers. I just found that out.
Is that right? Really?
Yes.
Yeah. So we're not technically in Yonkers at this moment.
it's very close.
We're very close by, but we're not in Yonkers. And yeah, so what we would do as kids is we would walk. We're now going to walk down the hill and then walk back up. We would walk up this hill, and where it says dead end in the parking lot, there was a way to get in to the school that way. There was no parking lot, and I don't recall that particular building being there. But now you see across the street. We could stay on this side of the street. We have.
Well, so just getting back to some of these teachers who have been implicated
Sure.
in the New York Times years after you graduated, was there anything like, there's always, I feel like in high school there are rumors about this
Oh, yeah.
teacher or that, and then, you hear something years later, like I think I mentioned on the show, a couple weeks ago, a friend of mine who I've known since we're 3 sent me a text that the lacrosse coach from our high school was arrested for
Right.
some sort of sexual predatory thing. And my friend told me that he's not surprised because this guy tried to grab his
Right.
junk,
Right. Well, so there's a guy who's in the article called Stanley Copps.
but I never knew that when we were in high school.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess I wasn't good looking enough for the.
There was a guy called Stanley Copps who was a very big builded, like a weightlifter type guy. And he would come up behind you in class and he'd put his arms on your shoulders, and I'm like, get the fuck out. And then there was another guy, I don't want
Well,
to.
wait, that's important though, because we spoke about that with Manny. Something like that is the early stages of a grooming thing. Like,
Well,
in
yeah.
other words, if you brush him off right away, he knows that you're somebody who's not going to want to come over to his house and look at porno
Right.
magazines.
Right.
But if you're receptive to that,
Well,
then
yeah.
you get the next invitation.
Right, and so in that school in Horace Mann, there were really the number 1 train.
Wow. Oh, Van Cortlandt Park. Yeah. Every time I go on it, it says.
So that's where I would come out of there every morning, and we'll go back how I'd stumble up the hill. And I remember one time I used to play a lot of tennis, as I mentioned, and I had a lot of tennis rackets with me all the time. And so I was up there on the platform, and I was just practicing my serve with 2 rackets at the same time and moving backwards without looking. And there were these police officers. Let's just wait. There were these police officers coming towards me, and I'm serving and not looking, and I just served pretty hard, smashed this light bulb that's in the ceiling, and the transit cops thought I was taunting them. They thought, because I looked at them, I just didn't see the light. I said, no, I wasn't.
And they said, what's all that racket?
Exactly. It wasn't very smart what I did. That's the kind of stuff you do when you're 15 and 16 and 17. You're not really thinking all that clearly.
Well, I'm not sure what's the story with the cellular network up here, but it's saying we have full strength, and it's still giving us sort of a crappy...
We could probably go, even though it's red.
Yeah.
So this is
here.
One of the entrances. Van Cortlandt Park is huge, or as Donald Trump would say, huge. So we're not going to go all over the place, but we can go in a little bit. It's quite pretty. There's
Let's check it out.
There's a serious golf course in here that's open to the public. And I used to play on in high school.
Well, this was a spot that is mentioned in The Ultimate Evil, and is a place where there was some activity.
Let's go this way.
In the Son of Sam killings.
Yeah.
In fact, the first person who's mentioned in that book, The Ultimate Evil, this teacher, Karen Wallstrom, lived on Fieldston Road or Fieldston Street or something.
Fieldston Road, which is right next to Horace Mann. And so there's a swimming pool here.
This is a huge park.
No, it's really a very nice park. It's old, it's well landscaped, well maintained. And it probably is rather difficult to police this, particularly at night.
Right.
It's a big area. There are woods in here.
They're busy, texting all the time, so it's hard to look away from the phone.
When they won the lottery or not.
Deal with any actual police work.
You want to go in here?
Every time we see a cop, Charles, they're crapping around on the phone.
You want to go in this way? Or?
Sure. No barbecues or picnics beyond this point.
Oh, God damn it. I brought all this charcoal with me and a Weber grill. So, do you see, by the way, in Zero Hedge, that the Weber Grill Company
went public?
Yeah, the valuation, I think it was $8 billion or something, 18
Why?
billion.
First of all, let's ask some questions about that. Not necessarily pertinent to Horace Mann or the Son of Sam, but why did it take so long for that company to go public, and what about it makes it worth $8 billion? They're just making grills.
Well, it's an iconic name. It's certainly a top competitor. This is a market with fewer names in it than in past years because so many companies have been bought or taken private, and there's not much product out there. So if you've got a company that's got a story in this market, it's profitable, got growth prospects, the market's overheated. And
no pun intended.
Exactly. And the Weber grills, as I remember, they're not the highest of them.
I have to say, there is a certain type of grilling person who reveres the Weber grill. I personally find them a pain in the ass.
Yeah. They're old school, right?
Yeah, you're putting in charcoal and you got the chimney and you spray the lighter fluid on it and do it that way. But I mean, this is this is like way bigger than the Great Lawn in Central Park.
Right.
Seems.
That's why I wanted people to see it. I mean, I don't know how far you want to walk. The reception's pretty good, possibly.
It's as good or bad as it is up there, so we might as well do whatever. It's a little bit like stepping back in time to come to this area, like New York. In Manhattan, everything is, constantly refreshed, renewed,
right.
Except my dishwasher. Oh, look at that beagle playing in the mud. But here, we're a little bit stuck in kind of days gone by.
Right.
And perhaps AT&T is sticking to that by not necessarily bringing in 5G.
So maybe let's go to our right, perhaps.
There's a POW flag flying there.
Yeah, that's probably one of the main park headquarters sites.
So regale us with some more stories of when the Son of Sam thing was happening. What was the general consensus there at Horace Mann?
Well, so from 68 to 74, New York was a toilet bowl. I mean, it was really, be careful.
The gutters.
It
the
was
sewers.
it was disaster. There were all these protests. You had the various assassinations, Martin
Right.
Luther King, Robert Kennedy,
A lot of turmoil.
Sirhan's, all that stuff.
Karate
then-
lessons, Charles.
Yeah. And then you had, as well, there's the city going into a state of utter decay. Also, I forget whether, I think it was 69 was the stock market peak. And they changed, we used to charge fixed commissions, and stockbrokers could make a good living without doing much work, and then they eliminated that, so that forced the whole financial services industry.
Vietnam was in full swing. People
Yeah.
in high school had to be very worried about
Yeah,
that.
I registered for the draft.
So people were going from high school to Vietnam.
Well, you had a student deferment if you could get into college, which, again, we talked about Bill Clinton deciding in theory voluntarily to drop out of Oxford during the Vietnam War when he
Seems
would
like something you wouldn't do.
Right. Well, first of all, Oxford was a free ride for him, and a stipend, good free ride. He didn't have to pay tuition, and room and board was taken care of, and he got a stipend. It didn't really have to do much of anything. He didn't have to go to class every day. To give all that up.
Drug dealing and rape, it really takes a lot of time.
Well, but you give all that up in March of your final year. Graduation's in May. You know, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But back in that time frame, people, like including me, agonized about would I have to go to Vietnam?
Right.
And Vietnam did not sound to me like a picnic.
Definitely not.
Fighting
I
in the
think it's
jungle.
difficult for people like me or anybody who wasn't alive at that time to really put yourself into that mindset of, you know, just the whole demeanor of everybody in high school thinking, if I don't get into college, I'm going to war and I could die.
Exactly. And hats off to the people who did serve and who did what they did while they, well, this is interesting. Sugar industry took root in this region in 1664.
Where, here?
That's what it says.
That's interesting because there was a sugar processing plant that we just had a guest on Manny's show on Monday who worked there, and and then Domino's Sugar took it over. So the sugar industry was fundamental to the creation of New York. I didn't know that.
Families such as the Van Cortlandt, Phillipses, and Delancey's, who named park places, enslaved people who were more than mere tools.
Whoa.
I mean, the whole tenor of these descriptions. This is the Van Cortlandt House Museum. I guess this is the family
The
home.
abolition of slavery is not only an action of the past, but continues by liberating the elements of the souls of black folk. The archives kept hidden, their spark, their heart, their connection to the divine.
Now let's get out of the sun a little.
Sure.
Yeah.
Who's that? Is that somebody Van Cortlandt?
Must be.
This is the Van Cortlandt House and Museum. See, I don't really know anything about this park or this guy or
Well.
what is going on here.
You can add it to your list of things to do. This is Major General Porter, State of New York, 86. What?
Josiah.
The first Harvard College graduate to be in the Union Army.
It's an interesting little history lesson to come to some of these New York parks and share this stuff with people.
Sure, they'll take his statue down for some reason or another.
Well, Trump, in his speech the other day, made a point of reminding everybody that when he made it 10 years in jail for messing with statues, they stopped messing with the statues.
Now, if you remember, I pointed out the clock tower at Horace, Mann.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
There it is, and that's that modern building that I pointed out. That wasn't exactly the way it is now when I was there.
Right.
And there's a path down in the back from Horace Mann to Van Cortlandt Park. I forget where it leaves out. I think it leads out sort of right over there diagonally. So the cross-country teams would come in here and run around the park. Let's walk a little ways into the woods and then back,
Sure.
just to see, so people can get a sense of how big this is.
Was
So-
anybody in your high school talking about dead dogs found in the park or any kind of weird satanic stuff?
Not that I recall. We had precious few incidents that of violence that where students were, or faculty member, goats at work.
That's what just caught my eye. You can't overwork these goats, Charles. The goat union will be right on you.
Well, 50 years from now, there'll be PETA people will be saying, all capital created on the planet was created by animals, and so we need we need to have
reparations.
Exactly.
They want more milk. What do goats want?
Yeah.
Goat
So
lives matter.
yeah, I know this is going to seem like a weird comment, but I'll make it anyway. Have you been to Africa?
It's the one continent, actually one out of, well, I haven't been to Antarctica either, but.
Yeah. So when you go to a game park, a watering hole, and you watch the pattern of animals who see to each group the time, one group goes, and another group goes, and whatever.
Hippos let them in, and then the lions come.
And humans had nothing to say. It wasn't like Joe Biden was there saying, at this game park, I think this team needs to go first.
Right.
And AOC saying, no, the turtles definitely need to go first.
Right.
None of that. This evolved over a long period of time. Then I'm not saying that the way the order evolved is good or bad. It's just that's the way it evolved. And way back when, people ate meat after a while. People are still going to eat meat, notwithstanding Bill Gates and his poop water business and all that. People are going to eat meat. I personally enjoy meat.
I was so pissed off yesterday because I bought a burrito from Whole Foods.
And it was not meat?
Well, I understood that it was a chicken burrito, but when I got home to eat it, it was a mushroom burrito.
Ugh.
I mean, I don't dislike mushrooms, but it's like when you expect to be eating chicken and it's a mushroom, there's that feeling of, wait a minute, what the hell is this?
I paid for imitation chicken.
No,
so
real.
look at these courts. These are pretty nice tennis courts.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, more tennis courts. So this is a very up your alley kind of park and area if people want to play tennis. I mean, this seems like, do they have tennis courts in, they do have tennis courts in Central Park. We've been to them, but.
Well, so what you do is you pay for a pass. It's a modest amount of money given the cost of court time. I want to say for the whole summer, it's like less than $200. And for that, you get automatically an hour of play per day. And if no one else is on the court, you can play more. And as you see now, the courts are basically empty.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It seems like this is more courts than they have in Central Park, is it?
No, it's far less.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not really too familiar with the tennis situation there.
But now as we head into close to the woods, and this is at dusk, this is not a park I'd want to be in.
Well, that's just it, unless you were a satanic weirdo trying to lure people and do crazy stuff.
Right. Which I'm pretty sure I'm not.
Right. You'd know by now.
And I forget where the golf course is, but maybe it's on the other side of these trees.
What do you know about the history of, like, how did this park, obviously Van Cortlandt, what's the deal with Van Cortlandt?
Van Cortlandt used to actually be a manor. So it used to be, I think it dates back to the Dutch period of when the Dutch controlled the area. And it wouldn't surprise me at all that this park was the original
Their grounds.
Yeah. And so descendants probably gave, or the state took, this land for a park. And we can, Wikipedia will tell you, let's just go to the edge of the woods right over there. You'll see what I'm talking about. Our viewers will see the difference. It would appear that there is a path in here.
That's true. Maybe we'll find some satanic
Yeah,
stuff
I don't
right
know.
now.
You can, but I'm going to stay right here.
I'll tell you what, without Manny Grossman here to tell us what is poison ivy.
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of it.
Oh, wait, there's a squirrel right here.
And there's, what's that?
What?
That white.
We'll go check it out.
I'm very allergic to poison ivy.
Okay, so I'll check it out.
But I mean,
I wore my incredibly low socks. Why is this squirrel? That must be delicious if he's just sitting there and not moving when I'm this close to him.
he's like, this is my house, man.
Yeah, I don't want to freak out a
ass.
squirrel, but I'm trying to proceed and he's sort of blocking the way. I don't think I've ever, wow, he's ready to attack. Look at that. I don't think I've ever stood this close to a squirrel before.
think I'll
This is
stand
a
over
Bronx
here.
squirrel here, Charles.
He's like,
How is he allowing me to get this close to him? Amazing. Thanks, squirrel. Okay, so yeah, there's some stuff right there.
a lot of stuff.
Manny, is this poison ivy?
Yeah, let's not go too much further in here, but you can see there's a
I'm wearing my
residue of some
extremely
kind of.
low socks, Charles,
Huh?
to help increase the possibility of getting
Yeah, it's also, it goes through the air as well.
Poison ivy?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, what the hell is this?
I'm going to stay up here,
Yeah, that's
Jason,
fine.
and let you investigate.
Can you tell what this is?
I can't.
Well, Manny tells us that there were aqueducts and stuff around here. I mean, this looks new, but the rest of it looks old. And then we got the street right there. I feel like poison ivy is shiny. So much weird stuff here in the Bronx, Yonkers, Westchester type area. Don't really know what that is, Charles. But it's an interesting departure from our normal live streams to be fully in the woods in Manhattan. I didn't even realize
In
you
the
could do
Bronx,
that.
technically. In the Bronx.
In the Bronx, sorry. New York City still, not Manhattan. Important distinction. So how does it feel to be back here? When's the last time you were here?
Oh, I don't know the last time I was here was probably 50 years ago.
Wow.
Maybe not that long, maybe 45.
Are you having any...
No, I remember there's a golf course, I think it's quite a distance to our right, I believe. And it's a full 18-hole golf course open to the public and not that expensive. Maybe it'll say at that sign there where it is. But you look out at this field and you say, my God, this is pretty nice.
It is.
During the school season, various schools, high schools and others will come out here and practice.
Uh-huh.
If you like to bike ride, you can bike all over the place.
It's amazing how close we are to the craziness of Manhattan.
So given a choice between being stuck again at 88th Street and between wherever Dalton is, I forget what the cross street is, half knee bends. You want to do some of them, Jason?
Maybe later. I just got another message from AT&T that I've almost burned up all the data. I guess I put the wrong chip into this new phone.
So what do we need to do?
We're just going to continue going. I think there's going to be a lot of technical problems with this show. So the first day of Kaizening, I've updated us here to a much newer phone for the broadcast in the hope that it'll help us overcome some of these problems. I was sticking with those older phones because of a certain particular audio issue, but I'm trying something totally new today, and it caused me to realize something, Charles.
Let's get in the shade.
One of the reasons why I personally dislike socialism, and actually, you know, I've spoken about this Kaizen thing, this idea of the constant refinement of a process or a technology in the search of perfection. Capitalism motivates that, because if you look at a fan or a hairdryer or something and you come up with an idea for how to make it better,
right,
you could, you know, invest all your time, all your money, mortgage your house, create something, and if you invent the best fan, the best whatever, people will buy it.
Or you can get ground into the dirt by the biggest company in the industry.
But theoretically, the way it's supposed to work is that if you work hard and you have a better idea, it's going to rise to the top because people will want it and you get money.
I'm not going to reveal which firm, but I'm aware of a firm that in diversity trading specifically bars people from making that argument, because that's racist.
Oh.
It's not true that if you work harder, according to the school of thought, and build a better mousetrap, that you can actually benefit in the capitalist society. That's a racist way of thinking. It displays your white privilege.
Well, what if you write the best
I, of course, agree with you. I'm just...
movie or song or whatever?
You didn't build that.
Well, what I'm getting at is there's a freight entrance to my apartment building, right?
Right.
And if you're moving large amounts of boxes or equipment, as I am sometimes having the need to do, you got to enter that freight entrance and you push this button and they buzz you in.
Right.
And that buzzer is so loud, it hurts my ears every time it goes off. So I happened to run into the building manager last night when I was coming in through this exit, and I said to him, what could be done about changing the buzzer over there? It's like a Star Trek torture, totally blowing out your ears. And he said, we can't do anything. And I give my usual, you know, come on, somebody landed a remote control car on Mars. Surely we could come up with a less loud buzzer over there. And this guy just says, eh. And it occurred to me, I said, all right, what if you just made the door open automatically so I could cover my ears after I push the button? His reason was contractors coming during the day can't hear the buzzer over the noise of the traffic. But I'm saying residents of the building are being
Tortured.
right. And in 5 seconds of brainstorming, I came up with this idea that we could make an automatic opening door. They have them everywhere. They could just hit a button
Right.
at the front desk and automatically open that door, and I could plug my ears. But because this guy has a union job and no need to come up with a
Right.
better idea, he's not interested in thinking about better ideas. And that is what socialism is going to do to us. California has announced they're going to start giving $1,200 a week to people between 18 and 24. A critical time.
That's a lot of
when you're
money.
deciding what your career might be. That was when I started my first business. Well, not my first, but one of the first that still remains. What is this?
Burial ground. Speaking of Son of Sam.
Pathways to the Past, Enslaved African Legacy. Scan the QR code to visit. What does that say?
I'm just reading it. Yeah, Van Cortlandts transferred their estate to the city between 1888 and 1890.
When the city acquired the Van Cortlandts estate, the nearby parade ground was initially set aside for the National Guard and opened.
So this is a slave burial ground in here.
Wow.
So,
You don't hear that much about slavery in New York. It's always spoken about in the context of the South.
which is so absurd, and that's why this whole 1619 project and really much of American history needs to be gone back over and restudied, because the center of the slave trade
Wall Street, wasn't it?
I don't know about Wall Street, but it was New York. I don't know where.
Should we go in there?
I think I'm trying to meander back
Okay.
that way. Just mindful of the time. There were actual riots in New York during the Civil War as Lincoln pushed the North to fight the South, because interests in the slave trade, resident here in New York, didn't want to see that happen. And indeed, another major location for the slave trade was Newport, Rhode Island. So that the way in which
shipping centers, right?
well, the way in which the trade has evolved over millennia is something that really needs to be studied. If we're going to make a big issue about it, which I think we shouldn't let LeBron James and others make all kinds of money having sneakers manufactured by slave labor
In China, right.
in China, and then bitch and moan about
Fair
how
point.
Black Lives Matter. Because slavery is an economic thing. It happens that there are a lot of blacks and African Americans who were enslaved, but whites were enslaved too, as were.
Whoa, hey, look at this. Interesting water feature of some kind. What is that? Hydroelectric?
I don't know.
Looks like something.
Looks like there's soap in there. So
Whites have been enslaved.
well, yeah. There's something that was called is called a Doomsday Book. Technically, there were two Doomsday Books, and it didn't encompass all of ancient England. Portions were not included, but nonetheless, they went over everything that they surveyed. It was for the new King William the Conqueror to understand, and his son to understand what they had conquered. They wanted to get a sense of what the agricultural output of the land might be, how much, if there was gold, if there were, if there were slaves, how many slaves were there, and it went really place by place. It still exists. I have a paperback copy of it. Very interesting document, but some studies have gone through all of it and concluded that approximately 10% of England were slaves in 1086.
Wow.
And it wasn't necessarily black slaves. There might have been some, but it was.
Well, what about in the 1930s and 40s in Germany? They were using slaves, able-bodied, capable people who were in the concentration camps were put to work building munitions and dealing with dangerous chemicals.
Well, to use a very technical term, but what about right the fuck now?
Yeah.
I mean, where you have an open-air slave market in Libya, thanks to Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama and John Kerry. And frankly, Donald Trump hasn't stopped it. I don't know where we're going at this stage, but I'm pretty sure
Sounds
the
like
subway.
we're heading back.
The subway. Oh yeah, where's the back of the pool there? Where we came in at first. There's
Yeah,
the pool.
it sounds like pool fun, screeching and whatnot.
Yeah. So if we're going to get into the issue of slavery, this idea that blacks cannot enslave or be mean or be worse than mean.
Can't be
criminal.
racist, you mean?
Well, it's not just being racist, that they can't do harm to other blacks is absurd. I mean, just the study of Africa, which I studied, having been there quite a few times to many countries for months, when you study the history carefully, certain groups enslaved other groups.
Let me just point something out for a second here,
Sure.
Charles. We're standing in a circle here. This is something that has appeared in many places.
This is the Van Cortlandt Manor House here.
But this notion of these like circles, it's sort of a sidewalk roundabout.
It's an architectural feature of an estate. You have these kind of things to your eye. This is clearly somebody spent a fair amount of money trying to get
Oh,
this.
wow. Look at that.
Yeah.
Again, Manny will be able to tell us what's going on with all these.
Right. Let's
Different.
hopefully we don't come to a skeleton around the corner.
It
But
just looked like there was a cool butterfly flying around. These mansions, I mean, they just look like someone built this and was like, I can't wait until this is 100 years old and it haunted.
well, I think the brickwork here is well after the mansion was built. You can tell by the stonework on the mansion.
Yeah, this
Very
looks
different.
new. Oh, but you can't go in there.
Yeah, so let's turn around.
Okay. Too many people are covering more ground than us. But sorry, you were saying in this book that you have
so to go into it is an indoctrination exercise to say,
propaganda project.
well, to say that all whites are racist because slavery existed and it was white people responsible solely for slavery, and therefore no white accomplishment as being their own. It was on the blood and sweat of slaves, and that's extremely simple. How do we get through here?
Or yet.
This is the glove